To the December Gedling Planning Committee. So agenda item 1, do we have any apologies for absence at all? Councillor Bestwick.
Councillor Sam Smith sends his apologies.
Thank you. Any other apologies? I think Councillor Wheeler is on his way. So I hope to see him soon. Anything else? No. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 2. Which is the minutes of the previous meeting. I'd like to propose them as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilkinson, thank you. Any comments on the minutes of the previous meeting? No. So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of agreeing the minutes of the previous meeting? Thank you. Anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That's carried. So agenda item 3 is declaration of interest, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary. Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've actually got a pecuniary interest in item 6, land of off Teal Close, so I'll leave the meeting at that point.
Thank you. I've got a non-pecuniary interest in item 4, and I will leave the meeting. The Deputy Chair, Councillor Wilkinson, will chair that item. In that case, I better leave the meeting.
Right, thank you everybody. If we can move on to item 4 then, application number 2014/0273, land at the corner of Longdale Lane and Kiggle Lane, Ravenshead. It's outline planning permission for up to 31 dwellings, all matters reserved, and I understand this is a variation of the Section 106 agreement, and Nigel Bryan is going to explain the application to us.
Thank you, Chair. As you probably noticed, there's 3 applications on the agenda. They've got parallels in that we're all looking to amend the Section 106 attached to all 3. There's certain policy background that applies to all 3, so I'll run through that first prior to looking at the individual changes that are proposed. The most notable change in terms of the policy was the updated MPPF, which was published in December 2024. Within that document, originally, first homes were a priority for affordable housing, but in the new document, they've been removed in their entirety. So now the MPPF makes reference to affordable homes in a written ministerial statement, which identifies a preference for social rent. Linked to that is also the affordable housing of SPD of the Borough Council, which, whilst of some age, it being adopted in December 2009, identifies that of affordable homes provided on a site, we should be looking for a split of roughly 70% to be affordable or social rent, with the remaining 30% to be intermediate or shared ownership. Another notable change was that the Notts County Council in April of 2024 adopted a developer contribution strategy, and in effect that changed how they calculated a number of contributions they'd be looking to seek, such as towards education and highways. And given that these applications have been with the authority for such a long time, it was felt appropriate to bring it back to members to seek those authorised changes to the Section 106 legal agreements. In all other aspects, the applications remain the same in terms of layout, etc. And just one other thing to note for each application as well, there's now 2 recommendations. So in effect, the second recommendation is that if the applications aren't are granted, or at least the Section 106s aren't advanced to a, coming close to being finalised after a period of 6 months, there's also the authority there to refuse them under powers delegated to the Assistant Director, John Corsick. Now going to the specific one for the 2014 application under item 4. It was an outline application for up to 31 dwellings on an allocated site. You can see the site here, and this is just an indicative layout. But as originally proposed, the change really is to obviously remove all of the reference to the first homes, and in effect that it would secure 30% affordable dwellings, and that would be regardless of whether or not they are self-build or otherwise. On page 14 of your agenda, on paragraphs 2.1 to 2.5, it outlines the changes proposed that have been identified by the County Council. So it identifies the contributions for education, bus stop, the NHS, parks, and POS as well. But in all other aspects, the application remains the same, primarily the change being the affordable and the contributions as outlined. Therefore, we're recommending approval of this application as outlined on page 16 of the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. I will move this item for the purposes of debate. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ellis, thank you very much. Would anyone like to say anything? Councillor Bestwick.
Yes, apologies in advance because I might be busy tonight.
Apologies, Councillor Bestwick. I've just been asked some clarification.
Sorry, if I could just clarify, first homes haven't been removed in their entirety. They're still an option. It's just that they're not a preferred option for affordable housing.
Sorry, I didn't hear the very first part of it.
Sorry, first homes haven't been removed as an option for affordable housing in their entirety. They're just not preferred as they were before.
Okay, it was a kind of a clarification of two parts really. One was a clarification of that because, am I right in saying it's 30% affordable housing, of which a percentage of that needs to be social housing?
Just for an example, say there's a scheme of 100 dwellings and they're securing 30% affordable.
Yeah.
And of those 30 dwellings, 70%, e.g. 20, would be social rent and 10 would be the shared ownership or intermediate. So that will be the split.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I've just got a technical question, I think, anyway. So this is 31, this has really got nothing to do with whether we approve this or not, but just something that members might be interested in, and I certainly wanted clarification on. This is 31 houses in 0.86 hectares, which would calculate as 36 dwellings per hectare. I think in LPD 33, it says it's in a rural location, as this is, it's 20 dwellings per hectare as a minimum, I think. So the question is there a maximum? And does this change in any way if they're all individual self-build properties as opposed to a site that's being developed as a whole?
They could go up above the 20 per hectare or they could go below, but realistically, I think the likelihood of getting 31 on this site, given it's below the 1 hectare, I think is optimistic. So I imagine when they come to the reserve matters stage, I would anticipate it being, less than the 31. And sorry, I've forgotten the second point of your question. Apologies.
That's okay, it's been a long day. Does the kind of criteria change for dwellings per hectare in any way if it's a self-build site, so individual homes one at a time, one assumes, or as in usual cases the site is developed as one entity?
In terms of how they're looking to draft the S106, then they would still, if even the company as individual self-builds, would still be looking to secure all of those contributions, would still be looking to get the affordable, would still be looking to get the education. The only reason we might not possibly get it if they were over 55s, then we might not secure the education because in all likelihood they wouldn't have the children. But in all other aspects, it would secure all the contributions outlined on the page 16.
Would anyone else like to ask a question or make a comment? No, in that case, we will move to the recommendations, which you will find on page 16 of your reports pack. Recommendation 1 is that planning permission be granted subject to the completion of a satisfactory Section 106 agreement which secures appropriate planning obligations and subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 5 below. And recommendation 2 is should a satisfactory Section 106 agreement which secures appropriate planning obligations not be completed by the 3rd of June 2026 or any further extension of time agreed in writing between the applicant and the local planning authority, that it be delegated to the Assistant Director for Planning to refuse planning permission. Can I see all those in favour of that of those recommendations, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? And I'm presuming that's because you left the room, Councillor Elwood. Yeah, that's fine. That application has been passed. If we can just briefly adjourn whilst we allow Councillor Allen to rejoin the meeting and retake the chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Paul. Okay, we'll move to item 5, land off Hayden Lane, Limby, which will be introduced by Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Just for the avoidance of doubt, since the agenda was published, we have received 2 additional letters of objection. One was just raising concern about the time to respond to the letter, but there's ample time for recipients to register to speak. They just chose not to do so. And the other letter raised similar concerns that were outlined on page 71 to 72 of the committee report, raising concern about noise impacts from the traffic that would pass through Delia and Dorothy Avenue. However, I don't feel these raise any new issues that haven't previously been considered. In terms of the actual application itself, it's a full application on an allocated site that you can see here on the screen. The vast majority obviously falls within our jurisdiction, and then the 2 access points from Delia and Dorothy are actually on land within Ashfield Borough Council, so permission would also need to be granted from that authority before development could commence. In terms of the actual changes that are proposed, the key change really again is linked to the split of the affordable housing, and in effect that is proposed to remove the first homes and go to 26 affordable rent and 14 shared ownership, which is compliant with the affordable housing SPD that we have. In terms of some of the other changes proposed in terms of the contributions, I'll come to a table in a minute which summarises it in some detail, or you can look at on page 56 to 57 of the agenda, which kind of summarises the changes proposed. But in terms of the layout, that remains the same as was previously agreed by the committee. And there's just a couple of pictures of the Papelwick Lane access. Just a couple of photos of the site and the access from Delia and Dorothy. And here's the change really. As you can see, the main one is the affordable. I guess the other most notable change is the bus service contribution. There's quite a sizable contribution there, and it'll go towards the Nottinghamshire County Council. So the overall contributions will obviously increase by about 160,000. There's been no objections to this from the agent, and you understand that the Section 106 is actually relatively close to being signed within the next few weeks. But in terms of the changes, we believe it's obviously policy compliant, would address the changes in the MPPF that he outlined earlier. So the recommendation is to approve as per page 57 of the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. I'd like to propose item 5 for the purpose of debate. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Are there any comments on this particular item? Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Again, just an update for members, if possible. From memory, this Delia and Dorothy, the 2 access points, are owned by Ashfield Council, and I know there's some discussion about whether Ashfield are going to grant access on those. Could you update members on where we are with that, please, or on where they are with it?
I can only tell you really second-hand what I've been informed by the agent is that they were really waiting to get this resolution, and then they'll be putting in the 2 applications for the small access points that you see. I can't see the red light. But yeah, they'll be putting those in really if members were to resolve this, because I think in the past, an application for another access point from Ashfield was actually refused by them, but it was actually allowed on appeal. So it's not really under the jurisdiction of this authority to really, approve or refuse it based on that. But you would imagine, given a similar application was allowed on appeal after Ashfield refused it, you've got to make an assumption that there's a high probability that it would get permission.
Any other comments at all? Shall we move to the vote? So we're voting on agenda item 5. The recommendation is to grant permission as set out on page 57. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Move to agenda item 6, which is land off. Move to agenda item 6, land off Teal Close, Netherfield. This will be introduced by Nigel also.
Thank you, Chair. It's a residential development for a replan of some, I think it's 16 dwellings on Teal Close. It's not possible to do it under the original outline, which had expired, so they've submitted for the 16 dwellings as a standalone full application. As a result of this, there was a need to secure contributions through the legal agreement, which was intended to be to first homes and education. And then, given what we explained earlier, we'll be looking to change those 2 first homes to affordable rent, and education haven't responded to the consultation, so the education contribution will remain at 78,762. The agent has requested that instead of affordable rent, they would be seeking discounted open market value homes, which is similar to first homes. But at officer level, we feel, given the written ministerial statement and also our own affordable SPD, that the social rent is the most appropriate form of affordable housing. It's also really where there's the greatest need. So despite that request from the agent, we are minded to recommend that the change be to the affordable rental properties. In all other aspects, the application would remain the same, and just for clarity, they have asked for a 5-year permission, and would also be recommending the addition of a landscaping condition, and just amending the drawing reference numbers just to reflect what's being approved. But in terms of the actual merits of the application, it is relatively straightforward, and we're recommending approval of this one with a change to the 2 social rent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. I'd like to propose item 6 for the purpose of debate. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilkinson, thank you. Are there any comments, questions at all on this item? No? Shall we move to the vote? So the recommendation is to grant permission subject to conditions as set out on page 94. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Carried. Okay, so we've got we'll hold for a moment whilst. Thank you. We've got a full contingent again. So we've got a collection of appeal summaries here. The first one, item 7, is 1 Church Lane, Limby. It's for noting. Are there any comments at all? Councillor Wilkinson.
It's not specifically about this particular report, it's about the reports in general, if that's okay, Chair. And it's really to ask the officers. We've got a proud record of winning appeals, and obviously we've got a batch here now where a number of the appeals have been allowed by the planning inspector. I just wonder if it must be very frustrating for the officers, who I know do a tremendous job in that. I just wonder if there are any reasons that they've identified for this increase in appeals being allowed by the inspector.
Yeah, thank you. There's obviously been 6 appeals. I'm happy to, if there's any questions directly on any of them, I'm happy to answer those questions. But in the round, I think 5 have been allowed and 1 dismissed. So, as you pointed out, that's perhaps not the usual kind of outcome that we would look to achieve. I think it'd be fair to say at officer level, when we kind of discuss these in the various meetings we have, I think there seems to be a bit of a change in emphasis, you might say, from the inspectorate, whereby I think a year or 2 ago we were perhaps talking about design codes and trying to improve the design, etc. I think in particular, I guess perhaps the most one that might sum it up perhaps most aptly, would be agenda item 11, whereby that was for a single plot on the Bessacar estate. To our mind as officers, it was a relatively tight plot. They were replacing a double garage on a corner plot with a dwelling, and we just felt it was a little too tight. But I think there must be a certain change in emphasis at the inspectorate, where they're perhaps now allowing perhaps smaller dwellings, etc., on smaller plots, where we were perhaps a little more concerned about the design. So it's probably just perhaps more of a change in emphasis that's perhaps coming out of the inspectorate, whether it be to do with the 1.5 million homes that they're looking to achieve or whatever. But it's just something that's at officer level and member level as well. We might just need to bear in mind there might just be that slight emphasis, perhaps more so towards the delivery of homes and more agreeable on perhaps smaller plots. So it's just something that we need to take into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you. Any other comments on item 7? So we're happy to note that one. Item 8, which is the Headlands Church Lane, Limby. Any comments on that one? We're happy to note it. Thank you. Item 9 is 284 Longdale Lane, Ravenshead. Councillor Bestwick.
Yeah, apologies, it's me again. I think members of the delegation panel will probably remember this one, and if you look at page 121, the inspectors agreed with officers all the way down the line until it comes to the last paragraph. And what I want to try and highlight here is what I think's happened, and without any criticism of officers, it might be something that as an authority we might want to bear in mind going forward. But the inspector seemed to have granted the appeal on the basis that the applicant had a letter saying that the stables he was building would be used by Portland College. I think some of us will probably remember this. Now, I've spoken to a senior director at Portland College who confirmed that that person had no authority to write that letter at all. That the letter was, I can't read and write it, ambiguous at best, and Portland already have plenty of facilities in the locality that they use for this very purpose. So I suppose it begs the question to us all really is, do we know what measures the inspector took to verify that this letter was genuine? And should we as an authority put in place procedures to verify authenticity in future? The trouble with this, of course, is that a lot of other people will now think, oh, well, that's how you do it. And I do believe that there's already an application in for somebody nearby to build a stable block, presumably going along the same lines. So anyway, they were just my thoughts that we might want to consider. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So any other comments at all? Okay, so we're happy to note item 9. Item 10, 289 Oakdale Road, Carlton. Any comments on that one? So we're happy to note it. Item 11, 67 Queen's Avenue, Gedling. Any comments? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. And can I pick up Nigel's earlier comment about this particular? It reads to me as though the inspector couldn't find a reason to turn it down in our policies, because our policies don't seem to have anything about scale and household amenity. I just wonder if there's any plans to look at that, to review that particular aspect of the policy.
I'm not aware of anything specific. We obviously recently adopted the design code, which looked at, for argument's sake, distances from, window to window and such like. But the only other policy we really got would be LPD 32, which references amenity. But we haven't got anything that you would say, a garden needs to be, 70 square metres or 100 square metres. We don't have anything specifically currently. I could always raise it with colleagues in planning policy to see if it's something they might be looking to do in the next iteration of the local plan. If members feel that is something they would be looking to achieve, we can always look to raise it with colleagues, yes.
Thank you. Any other comments at all? So we're happy to note item 11. Item 12, Rose Cottage, Goosedale Lane, Bestwood. Any comments on that one? No. So we're happy to note that one. So item 13 is the future applications, which is also for noting. Any comments on those? No. Happy to note them? Yeah. 14, which is the planning delegation panel action sheets. Any comments on those? So we're happy to note those also. And I have no urgent business, so I'd like to end the meeting. That's okay. Thank you for coming. And have a happy Christmas.